Dress for success or lounge around? What is it that you like to do? Today we're going to talk about fashion. Does it matter? Where does it matter? If it matters, and why in different cultures. Episode 85, Friday. Two Chaps Mini Cultures. Stick around. You're rather dapper today, sir, if I may say so.
No, trying hard to please, Could have ironed it a little bit better, I recognize, but hey, it's Friday. It's almost casual, isn't it?
Yeah, Mufti Day. You ever heard that? I don't know where that comes from. We used to call this Mufti Day.
What
when
day?
You had a Mufti Day. It was a day, like, I think it went back to school when you just said you could wear whatever you want, because of course we wore school uniforms back when I grew up, when we were told what to wear in our schools. So we had school uniforms, but sometimes you could just wear what you wanted. They called it Mufti Day.
Is that an acronym for something? Does it stand for something?
Don't know.
Okay.
No,
I've never heard this. And this whole casual Friday thing,
yeah,
this is something that I did not grow up with. So casual, and why on Friday? Who decided it has to be Friday? Can't it be Tuesday afternoon? What is it with that?
Absolutely. And this is a question that often comes up. I just had this question today. I was asked this question today. So why do people dress the way they do in a certain culture, and does it have some significant importance? Well, the answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. But
right.
Of course, it is worth looking at and worth observing when you're preparing to go and work in a location, or if you're even just visiting, to be cognizant of what people wear, how they present themselves. It actually may have a big impact on the way that your first impression comes across. Would it not?
I would certainly agree. And I think the relationship that people have with the garments that they choose to put on their bodies as they were, as they left the shower, it makes a statement, right? It to a certain degree, it either amplifies or tones down who we are, how we identify. So sometimes cultures will make it a point to not have clothing attract attention to people or let people stand out from the group or the crowd. In other cultures, it's expected or perfectly okay or even encouraged to express your full self or your full identity as the individual that you are with the clothing you wear. And that can be okay, or it can be accepted, or it could be a clue for the rest of the society to say, okay, this person is about XYZ, or this person goes to work or comes from work or has no work in mind today because they're dressed this way. So it's not only how we dress at work, it's also how we dress outside of work. That may be two different things depending on the cultural context.
Absolutely. So what might be casual for you might not be casual for somebody else, or that casual, for example, Europe, some places in Europe, casual is still, I guess, similar to casual, where maybe it is here in the US, but the clothes might fit a little better. They might not better, but they might be a different cut.
Well, what is casual anyway? Well, how would you define that? Where does that? What is? I mean, this is an arbitrary question, and it's also a rhetorical question, because I think you and I know that there is no fixed definition for what is casual. But when we use the term casual Friday or casual dress in the business context, what could that potentially mean?
I think so. Casual, you'd think would imbue a certain sense of relaxation, something that's not as stringent, not as buttoned down as normal. So that in and of itself might be where even just the regular everyday attire for in a business setting anyway might be seen as a relaxed look from an outside point of view. So, for example, I think most offices, when we're visiting offices here, most offices here in the US might have what you would call a business casual approach. So, it might still be a pair of jeans, but it's a good button-down shirt. It's and then, when it comes to casual Fridays, well, maybe it's even, a polo shirt, a little bit, no jacket, things like that. So that's that kind of thing to what might even be, for some people, dressed up. That's not casual. They don't wear that at home. Shorts and T-shirt might be apropos. But in the context of even outdoor relaxed casual wear in some cultures, what they might seem as kind of dressed up might be casual for the other culture,
right?
Just every day, out and about, going to restaurants and things like that.
Case in point, especially when it comes to the mix between Europe, mainly Central Western Europe and North America, and I would also include North America and South America as a big mismanaged expectation situation. In many parts of Central Europe and Western Europe, wearing tailored jeans, tailored denim that fit in a certain way is office appropriate in certain industries. I'm not saying in banking or in healthcare. However, in many office jobs, a tailored pair of jeans with nice leather shoes, or maybe very clean and nice and apropos sneakers in today's age, combined with a white cotton shirt and maybe a sports jacket, that is considered very much office appropriate. Whereas here in the US, denim does not make the cut for office. Well, traditionally didn't make the cut for office. So I've dealt with a lot of Europeans coming to North America, and they heard about this casual Friday thing, and they thought, well, what is the casualness on your Friday? You're still wearing khakis and a button-down shirt, and that doesn't look much different from the stuff you wore on Tuesday and Wednesday. And the North Americans look at the Europeans thinking, what's with the denim at the office? Well, who told you this was okay, right? And they look kind of tight. Does it hurt? So the expectations are not always in sync here, right?
Yeah, I had a client once and said they'd been in Switzerland for 3 years, and he said, no, does that mean I have to go and sell my skinny jeans, right? That was literally, he'd got used to wearing them so much because it was really basically all was kind of available. I guess it can be easier for men. I think in any culture it's easier for men to dress. We're pretty much easier to satisfy in that area. What I find, like in terms of, say, some African cultures, when you see people in business settings, Middle Eastern cultures too, where they wear a really, some of these are really wonderful dresses that reflect the culture, reflect the it could be religious, but not necessarily. Right. It could just represent a certain region, where they're from, to identify, and in an outward sense, without having to get into conversation, to represent to other people where they're from. And that's not something we do here in the West. We use clothing as basically fashion, but in that sense, it's an identity. So I think that's fascinating. I really love, especially African women, when they dress up in those wonderful, colorful attire that they wear, that has a real meaning to where they come from, and therefore ties them to the culture they come from as well.
Well, I think most of it when we say West or Western context, I would say in the what is often referred to as the industrialized world, which part of the world aren't industrialized, but the parts of the world that went through the Industrial Revolution first, adopted some kind of, I don't know a better word, a uniform or a fairly universally acceptable professional look, and the identity garments, the clothing that symbolized who we are from, what family, what tribe, what occupation, what religion. That is often, if it's still found, it's found in social circles, right? So it shouldn't be a surprise to most of you who are watching this. I come from Central Europe, German culture. So we, in my part of Germany, we do have these traditions to symbolize to the outside world where we are from. So I have a set of lederhosen, and it is made of a certain type of suede leather with a certain type of stitching, and the color of the suede leather is not green. It is brown, and it's not black or gray. These are the variations that leather comes in. And I wear that type of shirt and these type of shoes. And the women in my village or in my corner of Bavaria, they wear these type of dresses. And when they tie the knot on their apron, the positioning of the knot signals to the rest of the crowd, this woman is taken, or she's available, or she might be widowed.
Yeah.
And to those part of the group, they understand these unwritten messages that are expressed through traditional garment, right? But you don't see this at the workplace necessarily. However, what I do find is that we're seeing in our, well, one more thing though, in cultures that tend to be really tight when it comes to group norms, very collectivist cultures, let's say Korea, Japan, where you go in the workplace and you see almost a uniform type of clothing. There's only the bandwidth of variation within what's appropriate office wear is very slim, right? I found that, especially in those cultures, both Korea and Japan, what people want to wear outside of the work context tends to be amazing how wide the bandwidth of creativity and fashion is, right?
Yeah.
Which you ever been to Tokyo, ever been to Kyoto, and you walk around the city at night and you see what people are wearing? It's like, where are they coming from? What are you wearing during the day? This is amazing. So that could inform how we find clothing appropriate for work and for outside of work can be quite different. And then you look at cultures like North America, where the worlds blend into each other. What people continue wearing what they had on in the office, they wear that for the party or the bar as well, right?
Yeah. So that often comes in cultural dimensions we use, universalistic or situational, right? So it's appropriate in those the previous examples you gave, where it's appropriate to wear the uniform in the office, but then it's appropriate to express yourself outside of the office, and that's where it suits. But here in the US, it's a little bit, homogeneous. It's just basically the same. You're happy going in the outfit you were at work with to the bar on the way home, and maybe then hang out with friends that night in the same gear. So it's that one might say that makes it easier. But I think that the other cultures where there's a situational aspect to it, I find that fascinating. It's the first time I heard I'd have to be careful around my German friends if I ever found myself, the knot really makes a difference. But that's a really important way that the culture has coded itself to portray to each other in those circles a visual aspect of this means X, this means Y. So that's fascinating, and I think that if you were to use it. If you and also hierarchy in terms of what is expressed as far as who's who in the zoo, what position do you hold in the organization, and do you need to live in? We often talk about leaders that go to hierarchical cultures where they're not used to that. They need to live into the role as a leader and not be so kind of friendly and chummy with the subordinates. So therefore, one way to do that without actually doing it verbally is to power dress, right? And so
I find this seems to be particularly a challenge for, again, North Americans going into these power dressing cultures. The first one that comes to mind is Italy. Also other Mediterranean cultures, France, Spain, Greece to a certain degree. if you don't pay attention to what you wear, you will have a harder time making an impression. In Italy, it's the concept of la bella figura, the beautiful posture, the beautiful figure. You don't leave the house unless you're properly dressed. If you've ever been in Italy during the work hours, you see people on the street, lots of people on the street, and they're typically dressed like designer models compared to, let's say, the Ukraine, Germany, and rural or suburban United States. So I've trained quite a few people going into these countries, and we've had conversations afterwards. And the first thing they said was like the first thing they realized for themselves is whatever they brought in their suitcases isn't going to cut it.
Right.
So they were shopping for new clothes because they realized with the way they dressed as Americans, North Americans, they stood out in not in the way they wanted to.
Yeah, and that's why it's important. I mean, there's still tourists everywhere in the world when they go. And so if you're in a culture and you're living there and you want to be a part of it, then possibly, not the sandals with socks.
Yeah. Somehow in a hipster world, that seems to be a thing now. Socks and Birkenstocks, which to me, when I grew up, still, my wife will tell you, when I first met her, she had Birkenstocks to wear around the house. And I said, it's either me or those Birkenstocks. One of us will leave. And I'm still here. So guess what happened to the Birkenstocks? So, but now they entered the realm of hipness. I claim Heidi Klum for it. I don't know what happened. It's people, trust me, it is wrong. Mark my words. Birkenstocks is not fashion. Whatever your cosmopolitan or Vogue is trying to tell you, it is. And I'm saying this is a German with true heartfelt compassion, ruthless compassion. No.
So here's the audience participation part of it. Send your very best pictures with your Birkenstocks. So Christian, he'll love it. He'll appreciate it.
I'll unfriend you immediately. But there's famous German designer Karl Lagerfeld, who left us, I believe, last year. He was the head designer for Christian Dior for I don't know how many years. He was when you think fashion, you wouldn't necessarily think German, but Karl Lagerfeld defined what was Paris haute couture for many, many years, decades. And I'm paraphrasing one of his quotes. I'm not sure if I can remember it verbatim. But if you're leaving the house in sweatpants, you have lost control over your life. Oh. So
let's work out that message. It's pretty clear. That's pretty direct. Yeah,
that is. Yeah, German directness and take no prisoners. Now, what I found fascinating though is that in this pandemic year, where many of us are working from home or anywhere, what is considered work appropriate clothing has changed. And the fact that we both are wearing collared shirts today and most of the day, by the way, I noticed this with you and I, even though we've never talked about this, I will not hop on a video call with a business contact wearing a t-shirt. I will not be caught in a t-shirt. I think I've been on this call once or twice on our two chaps here with a hoodie and maybe a baseball hat because I had just come in from something else. And I felt really bad about it. I wouldn't let it on. However, my default setting, my cultural normal was really, it was twisting. My stomach was turning like, I can't be seen like this in this manner, right?
Yeah.
For most people in North America, they won't even think about this. And I can't tell you how many business calls I've had in the last 6 months with people who look like they just came out of the gym. And I thought, I'm not sure if I like this, but I know my flexibility over this has grown in all these years doing our work. But I will be letting myself down if I came to this not in a decent shirt.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, it feels Even when I'm not on a call, I think I feel it. I feel better. At least I feel like I'm accomplishing a task in a, it's amazing how important, or how that has an influence on how we feel internally and just how we dress, even if there's nobody else around, right?
Right.
And so I guess a final thing on this would also, to just a little bit of a warning, is that I guess one of that kind of general ways that we dress now, which is pretty ubiquitous, and there's a uniform, albeit a different set of standards, in those cultures where there are actual uniforms or actual native expressions of how they dress, is that you want to be very, very careful and before you start dressing to match that. I mean, that is what we would call cultural appropriation, in the sense that there is a limit to how much you need to match the other dress code, and that often gets to the respect of the culture, the religion, the regionality of the country as well. So it's not to say that you possibly can't do it and it wouldn't be appreciated, but it would be something that you'd want to do some really, really deep research on,
Right.
with somebody who really knows how that would be approached appropriately.
Plus, I think there's this fallacy or this false assumption that youth culture, which has become quite globally uniform to a certain degree, has made it appropriate to wear what is young, fast fashion anywhere at any time. This may be the case in a more casual setting. However, even as a tourist or a business traveler, you will recognize in certain parts of the world that what you think worked at home will also work abroad. I don't know. We both have been to Europe and to the Mediterranean area multiple times, and I know that we both can speak from experience. I don't know how many times I've seen North American or also Asian tourists in Mediterranean Europe who try to visit all the sites, and many of these sites have some religious context. Your ripped jeans and your tank top will not cut it if you want to go into the basilica. That's just not going to happen, and you will be shown the door if you're violating these rules. And in Italy and Spain, they've begun years ago posting plaques on the entryways that this is what goes, this is what doesn't go in, right? Also, mind your color scheme. Certain colors mean different things in different cultures.
Right.
Be aware of how much skin you want to expose. It's not just Mediterranean Europe. Gender roles in certain cultures play a role. How much skin exposure is tolerated, or how much hair exposure is okay, especially for females in certain Muslim countries. Do you wear open-toe shoes or not? Is that okay or not? Do you show you the soles of your feet? Is that something that could be a deal maker or breaker? These things need to be, this is much of the do's and don'ts of culture, but oftentimes we fall into that trap, especially as so-called Westerners who believe that standards have watered down across the board, across the world. That is, I see Chinese people wearing hip-hop clothing, then I should be okay wearing this in southern France. Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe not.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Err on the side of overcaution.
Yes, absolutely. Always good advice. Well, in this case anyway.
Right.
Absolutely. You are what you wear, you are what you eat. Are they correlated? I don't know. But possibly you are what you wear. You display, the way you display yourself is important. And yes. So very good. Thank you. Well, here we are at the end of another week, episode 85. Next week, got some guests, got some other topics related to specific aspects of maybe numbers to cultures. All kinds of interesting topics. But of course, we don't want to be limited to what we just come up with. And our guests, we want to hear from you.
Yes,
please share and share the love, share the fun, and enter your comments and your questions in the chat. What do you like to wear? What is appropriate in your culture? and what setting is best for the different things you wear, and just let us know. We
Or
would
what
love
was
to
your
know.
worst? What was your worst fashion faux pas that you either had yourself or that you experienced nearby? You don't have to out anybody. You don't have to. I'm asking for a friend. You know the deal, right? So
Yeah.
send us your biggest fashion faux pas, if you will.
Excellent. Well, have a good weekend, sir.
Likewise.
Another week in the can, and we will see you on Monday. Bye now.
Bye-bye.